Hello again, everybody. Dear audience, zooming in from all over the world. Thank you so much for being with us today. I have to say that it's not the easiest thing getting 5 of the most prolific designers in the world together in this space at the same time, but here we are. We got such great feedback after last week's Gemini, so we decided to follow up with a sequel in which we will have an opportunity to address some of the Q&A that we had from last week, as well as delve into the more business side of our discussion, which is how the travel experiences to mining locations and other gem origins have actually converted into dollars, either at the store level or directly face-to-face with the buyer. So if this is your first time joining us, welcome to my Gemini. I'm Hayley Henning. My guests, who I consider to be some of the top and most recognized designers of the world, are Erica Courtney, joining us from Houston, Victor Velyan from LA. Nice early morning for you, Vic. Thank you so much. Deirdre Featherstone from New York, Ulrik Hartmann in Copenhagen in Denmark, and of course, Webster in Kent in the UK. If you are a returning guest, thank you for being with us again. I heard many of your comments about being disappointed about our time too short last week. Well, we're back. So thank you for joining us. And this is how we're going to operate today. I'm going to let each one of my guests do a brief introduction just for the benefit of those who maybe are new, who don't already know us. So one at a time. Please, if you would introduce yourselves, just say where you are and just a 2-minute description of what it is that you do. Who wants to start? Stephen, why don't you go?
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Webster. I'm a jeweler, a jewellery designer. I'm at my home in Kent on the south coast of England. Quite enjoying, I want to say, this part of what lockdown means. I can't deny that, with my whole family. I work with most of them, so it's a bit like an office. And yeah, just getting on with it. So nice to be here in a community of sorts.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for joining us. Gentlemen first. Victor, why don't you go?
Good morning, everyone, from Los Angeles. Early morning in Los Angeles. I'm Victor Velyan, jewelry designer, jewelry maker. Hands-on at the bench myself in my older age still. I'm also, like Stephen, I'm starting to quite enjoy this experience of working out of the house, although itching to get out there and open things up and start working.
Super, thank you very much. Let's hear from one of the ladies. Deirdre.
Good morning. Deirdre Featherstone.
Deirdre.
I am in New York City. I am a platinum smith. I am a bench jeweler. And, you know, as all of us, I think, because of what we do, we also have to get out onto the front lines and talk about what we do. So I'm also my own salesperson, run my business and all the rest of it that every one of the rest of you guys does too. But I am enjoying this moment because I've actually been able to sit at the bench for 12, 15-hour stretches, which has been a gift I haven't had in a good 20 years. So I'll take that gift.
Thank you. Great. Sounds great. Erica?
I'm Erica Courtney. I am here in Houston right now. I also work in LA. I've been using this time to design. The first part of this sequestering was super hard on me, I'm not going to lie, but I'm starting to get used to it, but dying to get out, but just not too soon.
Thank you. And last but not least, Ulrik Hartmann from Copenhagen in Denmark.
I'm Ulrik Hartmann from Copenhagen, dealing in mainly in white diamonds and color diamonds, and also a big fan of Greenland rubies, since Greenland rubies comes from the Kingdom of Denmark. Here we have huge success with the Greenland rubies, with the responsible sourced stones and the storytelling, and I think we have sold more than 500 pieces since we started, and just a few minutes ago we sold a nice 10,000 euro ring to a customer who came in from the street that we never saw before.
Wow. Thank you, Ulrik, and thanks to all of you. It really sounds like like actually everybody commented, people, we're kind of starting to get used to this a little bit. Human beings are so adaptable, and while in the beginning it was all very difficult for us, I think it sounds like we're getting used to it, and certainly I'm enjoying hearing from my friends and industry colleagues in these webinar sessions. So thanks again for being with us. So as I mentioned earlier, what we're going to do is recap a little bit from last week, ask some of the questions that we got last week, and then have time for some more Q&A. And also this time I'd like to also delve a little bit more into how these travel experiences, while they do make for great storytelling, and of course everybody on my panel is absolutely tip top when it comes to storytelling, how that actually converts to the dollar sign at the store level or face to face with the consumer, because in the end that's what it's all about, isn't it? Business is business. So let me begin. Stephen, last week you emphasized that everything you're talking about is origin. You said that your clients want to know more, and the journeys that you take are to be able to share these stories with your customers. Stephen went on to tell us that ever since Conflict Diamonds entered our consciousness, it's our responsibility to be able to look our clients in the eye and assure them that our gems aren't associated with bad things that are happening in the world. Stephen says it's the only way forward now. So perhaps, Stephen, that's a great entree into one of the questions that was asked last week. From somebody by the name of Annie Kachian. You may know her. I believe she's New York based, and she has asked you please to elaborate on your experience with gemstones from the Panjshir Valley. And I think that by association, Afghanistan has a challenging connotation, but perhaps you can tell us what you are doing with the emeralds from Afghanistan, the story of the Panjshir Valley, and some of the good things that are going on there.
Okay, well, I wish I could have a little bit more authority on the emeralds from the Panjshir Valley, because I've only ever worked with one. So I may not be the best person to ask. I mean, I was looking, I can't remember if I spoke on this webinar last week or not, but I was at Tucson Gem Show and I was looking for an emerald crystal, which is not so easy to find, and somebody then had introduced me to the person there that was really representing at least an element of the mining that was going on from Afghanistan, from Panjshir Valley. And, that they had an abundance of emerald crystals. A lot of it they were using as their display, but was fortunate that they let me buy something from the display. And then, I suppose I was start to become, interested, intrigued, to be honest, by the fact that emeralds were coming from there and such good quality, and understood the complications that they've had about their communication, and faced a lot of turbulence, etc. And maybe that's the wrong word, but a lot. They faced a lot in Afghanistan. And it just seemed like something that was certainly that I'd never heard of before. I think those things are things that, interest me just as a jeweler for such a long time, to find something I didn't know before. A source could be Greenland Ruby. I didn't know about that until a few years ago. And it felt like an unusual place for ruby to come from, same as Afghanistan, producing things that, I kind of was familiar with tourmaline and aquamarine and lapis, etc., but not emerald. So that side of it, yes, I was interested in it. I was planning on going, but then I unfortunately was advised at the time I was going that it wasn't the right time to go, which was later last year, I believe. Just again through circumstance in the country. So that was disappointing. It appears that it's something to look at. I don't want to talk without authority. I was going to kind of explore it. So I've not seen it witnessed with my own eyes. The story sounds good. There's traceability there, etc. I think these are the sort of the starting points, if you like, for for something that's, you know, carries a good story with it, and that's the sort of thing I look for. So I'm sorry I can't expand more on that particular location for emerald.
Okay, but thank you. I think you've answered a little bit, and you did touch on it last week actually in the webinar, which is why we got the question. But also for our audience, I have also heard about the emeralds from the Panjshir Valley. I'm not sure who else of our panel has, or if you've got anything to add. But I do believe that, and I've seen some of the material itself, and these are gorgeous, gorgeous emeralds. And not that it's a new deposit, but it's a situation where, you know, people have banded together to actually bring recognition to the emeralds from Afghanistan, particularly from the Panjshir Valley, and to actually start this, you know, movement that actually helps people on the ground in the communities in this location earn an honest living. And it's also obviously it's been said that when this happens, you start to change the way communities develop, you know, around mining operations where there's a good, honest living to be made, which is a small start, but it goes a long, long way into starting to convert communities where they need it most. Does anybody else have anything to add about the Panjshir Valley emeralds? Has anybody, any other of my designers been approached to do anything? Do you have any other information? Vic, do you know anything about the
I don't, but I would like to add to any area that is not investigated or it's new. See, it's I think my colleagues will agree on this. Our responsibility is to make sure we're getting, Mother Nature has scattered beautiful gemstones all over the world. And there's stones being mined all over the world. Our responsibility is to make sure we get as much knowledge as we can. For example, let's take Burma, for example. Our government is in conflict with Burma, but I find most of the Burmese mines are feeding, housing, schooling so many communities. Yeah. I'm assuming the same thing with Panjshir Valley emeralds. It's feeding people. We have to remember that. It's literally keeping people alive, sending their kids to school. So that's our response. I find that as my responsibility. But for us to make sure to find out exactly where that money is going, of course, some of them are very obvious and we stay away from it. But it's really difficult to get into those details.
I think that's a very good point, Victor, and thanks for adding. You know, of course, this goes a long, long way in our discussion. And, you know, many of these are the stories that you as travelers to mining operations want to bring home to your customers. And this was something that Erica talked about last week too, is whether it's Africa, Asia, Australia, or South America where you travel, Erica, you marveled at how hard miners work and how much you relish the experience of getting to know them personally, how they cook, how they live, how they work, and how coming to understand this how much good these gems can actually do to these storylines in these less prosperous countries where lack of jobs often mean that the mines are their real only source of employment. So I think it's very, very important to make sure that, you know, when we discuss origins of mines and we see what, only once you've really seen that with your own eyes can you truly really understand exactly what goes on in those locations. And I think that this is what it's all about. So one of my other questions from last week was, are any of you working with any mining towns and villages during this time to support them? Now, I assume that during this time is referring to, you know, what we're going through at the moment, but I think it's a very relevant question in terms of, in general, are any of you actually working with any mining towns and villages to support support their communities? Ulrik, would you like to perhaps take a stab at that answer? Let's hear from you.
Yes. Yeah, first of all, we decided already when we began with the Greenland Ruby project that we wanted to support, give something back to Greenland, and there has been made a Pink Polar Bear Foundation from the beginning by the mining company up there, Greenland Ruby, and we decided from the beginning that 0.5% of all the sales that we do in the shop will actually go to the Pink Polar Bear Foundation, so that we give something back to the local community in Greenland. I think sometimes it's important to also show when you go into a project from the beginning that you would like to give something back, and that the local people can see that you're not only supporting them buying their gems, but you also want to give a small bit of the profit back to the people.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I know all about this. I just wanted to give Ulrik the opportunity to discuss it. And I'm also going to ask Erica that same or similar question, because I know that over the years, Erica has done also a huge amount of work going back, and Stephen too, involved with the Tanzanite Foundation when you visited Tanzania, when you really participated with the events that went on there, whether it was, through the schools or the orphanages with sports equipment or, school books, etc., etc. I'd like you to both talk a little bit about that. Erica, perhaps you can talk about it first, and of course to bring into your conversation how that in turn helped you on a business level.
Well, my first trip was to Tanzania, and looking at the schools that Tanzanite One had built, and knowing that the children did not have any paper to even write on. And it's so stunning. We brought tons of little notebooks. In fact, we even sent the money to the schools to have them buy it, so we wouldn't have to, so that they could have the exact same things as everybody else. But some of them had never even seen a pencil sharpener. They didn't even know what that was. They just sort of bite the pencil until it comes out, because pencil sharpener costs money. But we gave them all kinds of things like that, tons of art supplies, tons of like beads and jewelry making supplies, which was the best day ever, to spend it with them and make things with them. Secondly, and look, they wouldn't eat without us. They wouldn't eat without the school that Tanzanite One built. They wouldn't, or they certainly wouldn't eat what they're eating. Let's just put it that way. There are lots of little places that you can donate to, and it means so much. My second one is Niassa Lion Project, which is a pet project of mine, and going to Niassa in Mozambique and seeing what they do to save the lions and the elephants, and on top of it, the illegal gold mining, trying to find a way for them to mine gold to make money without poisoning the river with mercury. Because, I mean, let's face it, if that river dies, they all die. You have to have water, and it can't be poisoned. So they're working so hard to make sure that the gold is mined properly, and they're working so hard to stop poaching, and to know that what $250 does for them for a year. I mean, I do better than that, but what $250 does for them for a year is stunning. Like, $250 could probably feed the kids for 3 months. And before they went to school, they didn't have that food. Now that they have food in the school, they go to school. So they're learning and getting fed.
Okay, so then that's really great, and I know that for all of us who have experienced this, firsthand, we can tell these stories. But for many people who have not visited mining areas, and in other situations, very often people feel like it's the responsibility of the big corporates to make these kinds of contributions. But I think, Erica, your point that you just made is that even one person can make a huge difference. I know many people in our industry who, start small projects. It doesn't have to be a corporation that does, all the contributions. And like you've said, even, with the sale of the gems, how much these contribute to actual communities at the source of where these gems are mined. So thank you very, very much for that. And that's just a note to everybody that, no matter how small the contribution, it does make a difference at the source. And, we don't want to, we really, I think as an industry would go even further by highlighting even the smallest of projects, because it's so important to many people in the world. And, you know, the diamond industry has done a very, very good job of this. But in colored stones, you know, we're starting to talk about it. And I think it really is one of the things that people really, really love to hear. And really, very often it takes a lot of guilt out of making a purchase for themselves, when they know that what they're buying has gone towards, you know, helping communities at the local source. So Deirdre, what do you think about that?
Well, I think this is such an interesting conversation, and all of us have had a moment where we're all as jewelers and people who are selling luxury and being involved in communities where these stones come from, we are all trying to see to it that we are doing the right thing. And mining is a 1,000-year-old business, and the exchange of information at this kind of pace is relatively new. So I would say the exchange of information in the past 10 years, 20 years has been kind of at a breakneck speed. And when you go to a mine and you see the community and you see that, okay, here in America, OSHA probably would not pass that, whatever technique that is, right? But you're going into a community that isn't sitting there with a 50, 60, 100-year-old infrastructure, that hasn't been a wealthy country. And you see that these communities are, just as Victor said, feeding their families, taking care of their children. And if you have a moment to go in, provide boots. I had the privilege of being in Africa last February, and seeing the difference in just 1 year, when one of my very good clients brought me with her and she said, "What do you think of this?" And I'm like, frightening. But after a year of work going into that, in putting in equipment where you could sort gold in a mercury-free manner, you know, it's little steps. And while everything that we're, and 40% of, you know, the gold mining industry comes to you from these small villages where people do need to eat. So it's like the day you're 400 pounds and you decide, okay, I'm going to get fit. It's Tuesday. On Thursday, you're not going to be fit. It's going to take time. It takes effort, and it takes awareness, and it takes gentle teaching, I think. So we all go into these situations, and it's a privilege to be able to know your mine, your miners, the people where your things are coming from. If you can't get that, then you have to know your sources and trust them, and go back to them and say, well, what do you know? And if you can't do that, then you just have to be able to work with material that has a general chain of responsibility. So you can't guarantee everything, but you can do your best. I think we're all doing our best. Our industry has come together recently on a lot of things that have to do with ethical sourcing, ethical mining, you know, just ethics all the way along the way. But that starts with the relationships that you have, the trust that you have. You know, I could call you up, any one of you up, and I can say, can I get such and such a stone? I'm not going to bypass or send that through a lab to verify what you sent me, because that's the way we operate.
A lot of our industry is built on trust, and
you know how we operate. Correct. That's a very good point, Deirdre.
And you also can't take, I mean, we're very fortunate in this country. We have, you know, we can go outside, I can go 10 feet from me and I can turn on a tap of water and I can get water. Yeah. And we don't have the right to walk into any place and impose what we can, you know, what our values and what we're used to, you know, tell people how to live their lives, tell them that we find it more acceptable for them to starve to death than to work towards a better process. So I think there has to be a lot of room to respect other people's cultures, to help where we can in a way that doesn't interrupt their culture, and to enlighten and teach what we know. We're not the smartest people in the world, but I do believe that, you know, with all of our world gathering together, we all bring different pieces of information in and different pieces of desire. And we're being governed by our youth. None of us in our age at 20 had people asking us for ethical material. So our youth is asking for that because they have the information. They want to see the report.
Actually, I want to thank you, Deirdre, and it actually brings me to my conversation that I want to just quickly have with Ulrik, because in last week's session, Ulrik, you did mention that it is very much the younger generation who are asking so many questions about how mining operations are running, how they're working, how they treat the environment, how they treat their workers, what is going on at the local, at the source, at the origin. You also went on to say that, you know, for this new generation of jewelry buyer and wearer, it's key. And that for you, it's important to show them how it's done. Perhaps you can just tell me a little bit more about how you show the next generation of jewelry buyer and wearer how it's done, what's being done at local level or with environmental laws and best practices.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to repeat what I said at our last session, is that jewelry is actually about dreams. And sometimes in the jewelry industry, we forget a little bit telling the small and the big stories about where things come from. And I believe that when you connect a certain gem to a place, it would be fantastic for you to show them a little bit around where this thing actually comes from. If it's an emerald from Afghanistan, or if it's Burmese rubies, or it's Greenland rubies, or it's sapphires from Madagascar, I believe that to connect the place and the beauty with the gem to where it's actually found is quite important, because it also shows the customers a little bit from what region it comes from. I don't believe you can mine rubies like you do in Greenland, other places. This is a very specific place with a lot of regulations, and I'm very proud of selling responsible sourced rubies from Greenland. But on the other hand, I also respect, like the other designers said, that there's a lot of small scale mining going around in the world and feeding a lot of people. So I'm not going to say I will only sell Greenland rubies, but what I am proud of is actually to bring that story in the front line, that it's actually possible to do responsible mining and still making money. And I love to share those small stories from the region around Greenland, where you can actually see the beauty of the place and who is actually involved in the mining in Greenland. It's local Greenlandic people who is working in the mine, who get paid, who make money on it. And those small stories, I think we sometimes forget to tell when we sell a piece of gem.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point, Ulrik, and thank you so much. And so when you are telling these stories, and what you have done when you've told these stories, and I know that you've spent a lot of time and energy and a lot of money on your marketing materials, and you've really seen the benefit of this, and you do believe, obviously, that it's our new generation of buyer that is so interested in these stories. Can
I think to be honest, it's about curiosity, and it's not only the younger generation. I was visiting the Argyle mine in Eastern Kimberley a few years ago, and I was also proud to see how Rio Tinto was collaborating with the local people in that area, employing them in the mine, supporting local community. So, you know, people, they sometimes, if they want to buy a piece, you can actually tell them a little bit what's going on in this society, in this region. Is it what is specific with this place? And I think honestly that if you bring out a lot more of these stories, if it's Greenland rubies or if it's gemstones from Madagascar or other places, you will actually engage people more in being interested what's going on in these regions. So I think bring those stories out, show pictures, not only romantic pictures, but actually tell them a little bit where it's coming from and what is going on. I think it's very important, and I would love that more jewelers would bring those stories out to get customers engaged and to get a dialogue where things are coming from, good or bad.
I think that that's a very good point, and I want to ask you. Actually, we've got Peggy Joe just sent a question in my Q&A. I'm trying to see where all the questions are coming from, and actually, Peggy Joe is asking if any of you have heard of the GEM Legacy Foundation, which has actually been set up in the US by our friend Monica Stevenson, who deals exactly with this. This is supporting communities in East Africa. This is one of these excellent initiatives to start to tell these stories and to really explain to the consumer how colored gemstones are doing good for their communities. Ulrik, have you ever heard of the GEM Legacy Foundation? Or, well, not yet, but you have now.
No.
I'm assuming that my American guests have heard you. Everybody knows Monica. Vic, you know the GEM Legacy.
Great job, Monica. I had not heard about it up until now, but I'm a fan already. I'll do some research.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stephen,
can I just say one thing? When you have all these kind of foundations and organizations who are supporting local people, my suggestion or my advice is to bring those out to the customers. Sometimes a lot of these organizations and committees and things are staying within the industry, but I think what is important is to share it a little bit with your customers. So every time I sell a piece of Greenland rubies, I tell actually the customer that 0.5% goes to the Pink Polar Bear Foundation. We have a small Pink Polar Bear logo on all the jewelry and on the bracelets. There's a small charm. So it's not only about that you do something right, but it's also about bringing it more out to the public. And in my opinion, I think generally the gem industry could do more to marketing these things from the shops to the customers. They could put more attention on that, to do events, programs, marketing, that they actually say this is something that we are doing for the local communities.
I think that's a very good point, Ulrik. And like I said a little earlier, I think the diamond industry does a fairly good job at telling how diamonds do good. I mean, they have a number of organizations that speak to that. And as a colored stone family, we're only now starting to tell these stories. And not only is it great for sales and marketing, but it just feels so good also to do good. And when you do good, it does translate into good business. I do believe that. So thank you very much for that. And there's this whole movement, we know, with fair trade gems. Marissa Harvey's actually asking us, would you be willing to use only fair trade gems in your designs? So now this is a very complicated question because, again, and I think that this is one of the issues within our industry that makes it so hard. How do we call something fair trade compared to not fair trade? I mean, who is the person that makes that distinction, and how do we measure what's fair trade and what's not? And like what we've been saying, it's not only about the big corporate companies, who talk about being fair trade, but there's many small dealers whose livelihoods absolutely depend on the small amount of business or maybe big amount of business that they're doing. So I think that this is one of these questions around fair trade. How do we measure? Who would like to take a stab at answering that question? How do we measure fair trade? Stephen, is that something? Oh, or Deirdre?
I think that, once again, it comes down to being able to know who you're dealing with, being able to, trying to do, because, I mean, you could put a blanket, everybody wants to be fair trade, right?
Right.
But everybody's working, hopefully, in that direction. And I think at this time, while our industry is making these changes, all you can do is your best. Speak to the people that you work with. They are either at the mines or you are at the mines. Fortunately for us, being at the opal mines, that is one of the most transparent mining operations you're ever going to see. So, I work obviously with a lot of opals. So kind of knowing everything back to its source, maybe you can know 50% of that, but the rest of it, you really truly do have to work with people who are making an effort, go in without judgment, and just do the best you can, because I think we're all working towards a common goal, and that's the best that we can do, I think. And then bit by bit, I mean, just what I was talking about last year, the gold mining operation in Africa was not as good as it is this year. This year, they've got machines that will help them sort without. So 1 year makes a difference, 1 month makes a difference, one community is improving at a time. And I think that that's, if you're seeing communities improve and you're not strangling communities by putting in, you know, crazy rules that make them starve and create a vacuum where much worse things can happen. Yeah. I think that's the way you go. We're all hoping to do better, I would say.
Okay. And I think that's where we're going with this is to talk about what's being done, talk about what you're seeing, talk about what you've heard, you know, and to tell these stories so that people really get a better feel for what's going on at the source and what good you're doing and our community. Stephen, did you have something to add to that?
Oh, I was going to say, it's following on, you know, similar to what Deirdre's saying, but, you know, when I went to Peru with Solidaridad, which is an exploratory arm of fair trade, not always, but that was, in this case, that's what it was, you know, that they kind of identify where there are problems. And in this case, like Deirdre said, it was about gold mining and, you know, basically artisanal gold mining, the use of mercury, the destruction of not just the environment, people, everything. And so a fair trade in that case is a very good body. There's no question, you know, because they'll sort of go in and through education more than anything else will help to form cooperatives within, you know, very fragmented village. Even within one village, you know, you can have 20 families are all sort of digging holes in sort of in and around the same place, and fair trade will come in and kind of, you know, get that village to work together, work differently, and then in the end you've got a good story. So I believe in a fair trade process. But then going back to almost everything that everyone else has said, you know, and answering the question that was put, would you only work with fair trade product? I mean, if you want to refer to fair trade, meaning not inside the brand of fair trade, but, you know, as a difference, fair traded goods, that's quite different. I think, you know, because I think with fair trade has worked amazingly well, you know, with certain elements like in food, coffee, bananas, cotton. They've really managed to form a huge, you know, impression on the market. I don't know if that's possible in the jewelry space. I really don't know. It may well be, but it got a lot that means that maybe they couldn't either. And I think that kind of goes back to responsibility of us for ourselves and the products that we're choosing to use. And, you know, working with the transparency as well. I think, as Deirdre said, I've never been to these open mines. It's just the most transparent sort of mining that you could see. And I think those are things that you'd say, well, does it fall inside fair trade? No. But in my mind, it's fairly traded. And perhaps that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, I think that the way we tend to put things in boxes in terms of descriptions can be sort of quite misleading, and especially with our industry, it's you know, very, very difficult to cut things off as being fair trade or fair mined, and to categorize things in boxes like that. And like you said, so much has changed in recent years, and it's baby steps, and yeah, it's, you know, we wonder how that's gonna be and how it affects our businesses in the long run. But thank you very much for those answers. I think it's absolutely fabulous. Did anybody? Because I have a couple more questions actually.
I just had a comment.
Erica, go ahead, please.
About these new finds and shear in Greenland, in certain places and certain localities that are brand new, and you think to yourself, why do I need a Greenland Ruby or a Panshir Emerald? I already have an emerald, I already have a ruby. But what I've noticed about some of this material is it is, well, to my eye, a completely different color sometimes. Of course, it's all red or it's all green or whatever it is, but it has different qualities, different seductions, I feel. And I feel with things like this that are brand new, you're the first person that will ever own a Greenland Ruby or a Panshir Emerald or whatever it is. You're the very first person, you know, in this generation to be owning this kind of material. And I think it's kind of cool because a lot of people are more of collectors than they think they are. You know, like they do collect jewelry, they just don't understand that they are really collectors. And it's fun to have something from different localities.
Absolutely. And I think it's fun if you make it fun, like what you've always done with your gems and what you've done with your business is to find out, you know, a little bit more of where these gems have come from. And as I think I mentioned in last week's webinar, you know, Richard Hughes once said to me that colored gemstones link people and places, and not just the people and the places, but what goes on at the places and what goes on with the people at the places, and how we actually bring those stories to us in a world you know, where we can only imagine visiting faraway exotic places like Greenland or like Afghanistan. I mean, I don't think I'll ever set foot in Afghanistan, but I sure as heck want to know what goes on there. I'd love to hear more about where these emeralds are mined and what better way to perhaps own a little piece of this storyline. And you know, exactly what we did with Tanzanite, you know, with Tanzanite being from the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro, you know, conjuring up that romance and letting people take those journeys in their own heads by owning something, you know, a valuable piece of the earth from this part of the world. So, yeah, I think that those are our responsibilities to tell those stories, which you guys are absolutely the best of doing. Thank you so much. Does anybody have anything else to add? Because then I have a couple more questions that are more sort of related. Yeah, little hands are going up. I feel like I'm here. I love it. I love it so much. But okay, then let's go. This is such a nice conversation. We could really keep going on this. Deirdre, what would you like to say, my darling?
Just quickly, I think that one of the things about stones that are coming from newer mines and you know, new discoveries is, you know, they're not working with a 100-year-old infrastructure. So I think the opportunity to go into these fields and do it properly and do it environmentally sensitively and do it, you know, fairly treating workers. I think that that is one of the things that's very exciting about new mines and new opportunities for the people who live in their country.
I think that that's a very good point to make. You're right. It's not as if anybody has to sort of go back and change anything that they're doing. It's, you know, when they're setting up new businesses that, you know, from an environmental point of view or, you know, from the human resources point of view, that things are done correctly from the outset, which is obviously very, you know, as Ulrik had said, what's very, very important to our new consumers. So that's a great point. Erica, what did you want to add, my doll?
I think I forgot. What was the question again?
Maybe it'll come back. Maybe it'll come back.
What was the question again?
No, it was just a comment. It wasn't really a question. It was just
commenting on new mines.
Yeah, we were talking about new mines, new operations, bringing new stories. Yeah. No,
that's it.
Okay,
I have on the brain. I have no idea.
I have a small comment to that.
Okay, Ulrik, go ahead.
I've been in the jewelry business for many years, even though I'm still feeling young, for almost 35 years. And when you have a jewelry business and you have regular customers, I think it's important time to renew yourself a little bit. And what has happened with the Greenland Rubies that we have been marketing here for the last couple of years is actually that we cannot offer the same stones, the same story, the same style, the same model year after year. So you actually have to reinvent yourself a little bit. And when there comes up new stones or new deposits or new possibilities, I think it's a great opportunity for our jewelry business to say that we are actually also coming up with something new. Jewelry is also a little bit about fashion and not fashion, because this is it's high-end luxury that you don't throw out, that you also have for many years and you pass it on to the next generation, but to have an argument for your customers to come into your shop or to come and have a look if something new exciting is going on. Sometimes it's a good idea to have a new gemstone or a new diamond and do this as a good marketing thing.
I think that's a very, very good point to make. I mean, it's perfectly common sense to me that when you've got something new, you know, you can entice your customers back into your store to say, hey, let me show you something I know you've never seen before, because, you know, this is a new deposit, it's been newly discovered, or, you know, it may even be, hey, this is something that I saw in Tucson last month when I was there. You know, these are the conversation starters that offer the opportunities, you know, for everybody to make a sale, to grow your business. I think it goes without saying that if you don't change up your story or what you've got to offer, you know, how can you expect your customers to keep coming in? You know, they're likely coming in to see something different or something new. And I think that's a very good point, Ulrik. Thank you so much for that. So just quickly, let's just jump a little bit, because I had some questions last week from people asking a little bit revolving around what we're experiencing now. And because most of you, I'm sorry, Ulrik, you're not really, and because Ulrik's based in Denmark, but this is a question that, it revolves around what recently happened, literally within the last couple of days in the US with Neiman Marcus. Declaring a bankruptcy, and many of my designers who are on the panel are very tightly involved with this group, be it Bergdorf Goodman, Neiman's, or both. So the question is, how do you feel about the Neiman's bankruptcy? How do you think it will affect our industry, the fine jewelry industry, and more personally, how do you think it will affect your business going forward? And what, you know, what to do? What to do? Who, Vic? Would you like to comment?
I was reading some of the questions. I missed. I'll go on to someone else until I catch up. I was reading the questions on the screen. As
yeah, I know. We've got a ton. We've got a ton of.
I know. I'm so sorry. Move to someone.
Okay. All right. So you can think about that for a minute. Deirdre, do you
yeah. I will tell you that Victor and I have spoken about this, and you know, I think at the beginning, everything that we've done, everything that we've built is basically locked up in vaults all over the country, which is a little nerve-wracking, right? But once again, this goes back to conversations, trust, and belief in where you are. And Neiman Marcus has worked in an ethical manner and has been very employee-centric since that's one of the ways that they worked. So my feeling is that this bankruptcy is going to allow them to restructure, come out better, come out stronger. They are a luxury brand. They are a beautiful brand. The Bergdorf Goodman is an incredibly beautiful brand. And I think they're worth saving. I feel like every conversation that I have had has really been very positive and very much imbued with a sense of shedding some of the things that were holding them down, and once again allowing them to come out sort of free of a few things, create a better infrastructure, create a better management, and create something that is even more refined. You know, we've all had this opportunity while we've been locked up to like clean out our homes or repaint the walls or make a terrarium. You know, whatever it is, I think that this is allowing the big stores to be able to do the same thing, because honestly, it was unsustainable. And I think this is going to, once again, allow the cream of the crop to rise to the top and even be better than it was before.
Okay, nice. I love
it. Very positive about
that was a great answer.
I think you said that beautifully, Stephen.
Beautifully, it was, yeah. I'm on the same boat. I am on the same page with Deirdre. I think they're just going to clean house. That's the best way to describe it. They're going to clean house. They're not going anywhere. It's a national landmark. We are very proud of Neiman Marcus, and I've done a lot of business with Neiman Marcus in my lifetime. And I think they will be they will be back, and they will be back shining.
Good, nice positive message. Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to launch my 25-year anniversary of my Crystal Haze, which is a signature collection for me, 2 weeks ago, because I love Bergdorf's, and they launched it really for me 25 years earlier, and I couldn't have been more supportive. And I like the Deirdre and Victor have said already, and I know Courtney will probably say the same. We've all had some really great years, experiences with the group, and yes, the group was unsustainable. I think from a financial point of view, all the numbers have been published. That was big numbers they were dealing with, but to think of them not existing, they will. Yeah. Whether Neiman's carries on with its 67 or so stores, which does feel like an enormous number, and in 2020, maybe 67 department stores is not viable anymore. But I bet you their best stores and the ones that they know that they stand a chance with in the community, because we've talked a lot about communities, and often these kinds of stores form a catalyst for a community, definitely, and that's the role they play. So I'm with them. I think it sounds like everyone else is.
Yeah.
And see you in fall.
Not only doing business with them, I can't see my life without shopping and walking out with those silver bags.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. We all shoppers at Neiman Marcus for sure.
Exactly.
But that's all very positive and very, very nice to hear. I think it's lovely. And I think that we probably answered the question that was posed to us from last week's webinar now relating to the Neiman Marcus bankruptcy. Like you say, just an opportunity to maybe make things bigger and better, or maybe not bigger, but maybe better. And maybe that's what this whole pandemic is all about. But certainly, I think there's been this whole, and what we've seen with our webinars or our Luminars or our Geminars or whatever we want to call them, that there's obviously a much more opportunity for the digital world to be more prolific in all of our lives, in our businesses. I suspect everybody at this stage is pretty much, if you're not already online with your business, you are thinking about how to do that. How do we translate our storytelling to an online sales experience, do you think? Is it possible in the same way, or is online... Yeah, okay, that's my question. I don't want to make it too long-winded. Is everybody on my panel involved with some or other e-commerce or online opportunity, either direct to the customer or via another platform?
Well, I'm working on it.
Okay, well
it's not there yet. I'm working on it, but my goal is to reach people that can't reach me. So not really to take it away from the stores at all, because I personally don't think that there's anything like walking into a store and learning about whether it's your wardrobe, what the material is. It's one thing to sit there and read the stats. It's a whole nother thing to put it on and say, what would I wear with this? And the salesperson can tell you what you would wear with that, which is a harder thing to translate. It's not just telling the story online to be able to sell jewelry or anything online, but when you have a professional salesperson in front of you that can really go through the entire story about the piece of jewelry or what you could wear it with, or it's a whole different thing. I do believe in online for the people that can't reach you, but the stores are the best place to be for so many other reasons than just to support small business. I think you get the benefit going into the stores also.
I agree with Eric 100%.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm there, and I feel like that this whole online thing is going to have the effect of the pendulum swinging back and really give the stores an opportunity to be a real destination, like the theaters, like the restaurants. It's going to give, I think, a big sort of resurgence of excitement about actually being in a department store.
Okay.
I think we're going to see are a combination. I really enjoying what you're able to communicate online. You know, we all talk about storytelling. The storytelling cannot feel more authentic than telling a story from your kitchen. It's amazing. I feel that we've had some of the best responses to things. Now, I am aware that this is a moment. So, you know, people are in their own kitchens watching you in your kitchen. But some of the feedback we're getting has been so massively positive. And, you know, we already have an e-commerce platform that, like, I think, you know, probably everybody here, it's not your main channel. It's a channel. It probably grows every year, and it's sort of forming a bigger, small percentage of your sales, because we all need the stores. But I think that, you know, everybody here is a storyteller. We've established that. And I felt that, you know, certainly in the Neiman Marcus arena, because that's where I did most of my storytelling, you know, they could advertise. They could say, Stephen Webster's come in, or it could be Erica Courtney or Vic, it doesn't matter, Deirdre, anyone's coming, and you get a pretty good turnout, and you tell your story. They're meeting the designer. People would love to do that. And I think without a doubt, that has become more and more and more difficult with retailers. People have been spoiled. They're not so interested. They're like, oh yeah, okay, well, you know, we went once before, or we done that. And I don't think it's just me. It might be. I don't know. But I feel that sort of, I don't want to call it trunk show, personal appearance, because that all sounds awful. But in some ways, it's meet the designer, right? Meet the creator. And I think that, you know, somewhere along the line, we're able to tell our stories directly online. I hope that the combination of doing that and then going back into a store might revive some of the enthusiasm that people have for meeting a designer. You know, just because you're not, you know, a massive fashion designer, you're a jeweler, you know, that it's still, that people will come in and want to listen and meet you and listen to your stories, because I think it needed a reset. Like we've said before, everything at the moment is on reset. And I think retail's on reset. I want to see it come back strong, but in some ways I felt a lot of the bigger retailers kind of needed to rethink about what they're doing. And don't forget, they're all selling online. I mean, Neiman Marcus' biggest store is its online store. It's not downtown Dallas or somewhere. Yeah. So I think there's this sort of, we have an opportunity here to work out how we use both tools. And that's how we probably will come back stronger, rather than it just being one. Yeah. I believe, anyway.
Ulrik.
I want to add to that.
I just want to share some good experience, because I'm from a family, I'm the only one in my family who's not in the advertising business. And I'm not an online guy, but nevertheless, we have invested a lot of money in our website and social media over the last 3 years. And I'm not selling jewelry online. What I'm using social media and my website is to drive traffic to the shop. Yeah. And what I think is very important is that you engage your customers on these platforms. So what I'm normally using my platforms is to inspire my customers, to educate my customers, and to introduce them to new things, so that when they come into the shop, they have had some time to read about new things, or where a diamond comes from, or a certain design or an idea. And the customers, when they arrive in the shop, they feel much more comfortable, because they are a little bit aware about what they're going to discuss. So they're not coming into the shop and cannot take any decisions. So if you have a very good social media platform who's doing very good storytelling, or a good website where they can read a little bit more in details about your design, the origin of a gem, your philosophy, whatever, then actually when the customers, they enter the shop, they are much more prepared to take a decision to buy, because they have already had some time to think about the items.
You prepared them for that experience, and you've made your store their destination for, you know, coming to see what it is that they've already read up on or seen online.
So basically make your social media and your website to drive traffic into your shop, and it actually works for us. The last year we have had almost 20% more foot traffic in the shop, because of these new things we are working hard on. It's not easy, but it actually it works if you try them on the long term.
Yeah.
Fantastic advice. Honestly, I don't think
that if I may.
Vic, please, go ahead.
What people like Stephen, myself, Erica, Deirdre, we don't just sell jewelry, we sell stories, we sell experiences. Online marketing is great, I'm all in it, I won't be part of it, but I'm sure my team will organize it in a way. Someday we will sell online. But I'm really praying every day that at least part of our lifestyle comes back, because like Stephen said earlier, we really enjoyed this. My life was a big party before this thing happened. Yes, it's a lot of hard work involved, but I'm going to miss those days where I'm surrounded by people asking questions specifically about what we're discussing. How are you going to tell your story about how fabulous the mines are in Greenland? I mean, you can write it all up and people can read about it, but it's not the same. We already established we are storytellers, but we also sell experiences for some of these people that are really enjoying this, buying not only the jewelry, but the experience they had, hanging out with the designer, having cocktails, having dinners. I am really praying all that stuff is going to come back. Along with the online sales, that's great, but I'm going to miss my experiences. I'm going to miss the rubbing shoulders with some of these great collectors of mine.
I think one of the things that Victor is speaking to is the core of why we do this. In one way, we're kind of small performers. And in another way, we've not only collected experiences to bring to our clients, but our clients many of them are our friends. And it's like we're all missing our people right now. And for us who are out in department stores or out in, wherever we sell our goods, we miss our people. I miss my ladies who are like, should I do this? I'm like, no, you're going to hate that in a week. Should I, what about this? I'm like, this, I was sitting at a bench and I built this for you. I know you didn't ask me for it, but I still built it for you anyway, because I figured it was missing for you. So we are building for specific people. We are completing collections, building stories, and I miss my people. I miss you guys.
Lifestyle for us. It's not just business, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's collectively made you so successful, all of you. And while that sounds profound, I think that is at its core the absolute truth. You're the best at what you do, not just with your design aesthetic and your jewelry manufacturing and technique, but as storytellers and engaging with your customers and making people want more and making people want to own what it is that you're creating. And I think that really does speak enormously to your level of success, which is absolutely fantastic. We are now at 6:04. Should we continue, or does anybody have anything else to add? I had a couple of questions which I've mostly answered. Some of them are a little bit repetitive. We talked about digital.
Let's see if there's another important question we can ask. Meanwhile, I will add to that. The panel you have here, I'm not so sure about being the best, but I'm sure of one thing. Every one of these people you have here today truly, truly love what they do.
Absolutely.
So, and I know I'm speaking for my colleagues as well, because I know every one of them. And we love what we do, and we just want to get back to work. We want to, whatever way it is, we just want to get back to our lifestyle.
Yeah,
that's so true.
Manner. And I do believe that, Hayley, first of all, thank you. Last week I wrote a little text at the end of this to you saying how much and how emotional this has been, just seeing all you guys, we see each other in, quite frankly, my favorite mine, which is the Tucson Gem Show. You go to a counter, you buy the thing that somebody worked really hard at.
Yeah.
You don't get dirty, and you can go out with drinks for friends later. Anyway, that's my favorite mining experience. However,
that's a whole nother webinar, by the way. I'm just saying that's a whole nother question and answer.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
But I am, so grateful, because I think you know, I've been in my studio, I've been working on some things, and I've had the privilege of working on some things a lot slower than my other jewelers do, but I'm still here and having a good time. But getting together with all of you guys, I had no idea how emotional I would feel about this, how, you know, I love you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you can sell jewelry online all you want, but are you going to have the experience of standing in front of Bergdorf Goodman, smoking a cigarette, and here comes and you hear a loud noise, and you turn around, and it's Deirdre on her
motorcycle
pulling up and saying, "Hey, Victor, what's up? What are we doing this evening? Are we having cocktails?" I miss that, and I want that to come back.
I've just bought a new Norton, Deirdre. We have to go for a ride. Vic,
I'm going to bring a second bike into the city so that when you all come in, you can ride something.
That sounds like fun.
I'll be on the back of your bike.
I would be, but we finally have a good-looking person on the bike.
You're so crazy.
This has truly been an absolute pleasure and honor for me. Really, it's been a fantastic hour. I can tell from our questions and actually just from the sheer participation that we've had over these last 2 weeks has really been astounding, and I've loved doing this. I would love to do it more regularly. Of course, I love to hear your voices. I miss you. I miss everybody out there, just like you guys. I really want to say thanks to everybody who's joined us from all over the world. I've had people popping up from all over. And again, my absolutely great panel of designers, and of course, to everybody who's helped me to put this together, and to you guys, especially for rallying with very little notice to get together today to bring your storytelling, your really exceptional business acumen to some of our listeners. Everybody I know has appreciated. I'm going to have tons of comments. I'll share everything with you. I want to thank my assistant, Andrea Prodescu. She works tirelessly to make everything happen. And of course, I can't wait to hug you all and see you all very, very soon. I hope sooner rather than later. And yeah, keep going. We'll be together again soon. In the meantime, it's our social medias where we can connect. And of course, you know, however we can do it, whether it's on Zoom or WhatsApp or FaceTime, let's stay in touch. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Hayley.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love you all.
Hayley.
Love you guys.
Thank you. See you soon.
Bye-bye.